I need to tell you something before everyone else finds out. Vanessa's voice shook as she sat across from me at our favorite coffee shop, the same place where we'd celebrated promotions, breakups, and everything in between for 12 years. I'm pregnant. I reached for her hand, smiling. That's wonderful. Why do you look so nervous? She pulled away, her eyes filling with tears. It's Julian's baby. The words hung in the air like smoke. Julian, my husband of 8 years. The room tilted sideways, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of managing a crisis intervention hotline had taught me to control my reactions. I see, I said calmly, setting down my coffee cup. Vanessa looked surprised by my composure. She'd probably expected screaming, tears, maybe even a slap. Instead, I smiled gently. How far along? 3 months. 3 months. While I'd been working double shifts to support Julian's photography business. While Vanessa had been coming to our house for dinner every Friday. While I'd trusted them both completely. My name is Laurel Brennan, and I'm 36 years old. I've spent the last decade working as a crisis counselor, helping people navigate their worst moments. I never imagined I'd need those skills for my own life. I met Vanessa in college. We were roommates who became sisters. She was the maid of honor at my wedding. I held her hand through 2 terrible relationships. Our friendship was the kind people wrote about in books. Julian came into my life 6 years after Vanessa and I became friends. He was charming, creative, and ambitious, a photographer who dreamed of opening his own studio. I supported that dream financially while working 60-hour weeks. Vanessa had always been supportive of our marriage. She'd helped us pick out furniture for our first apartment. She'd organized surprise birthday parties for both of us. The 3 of us were inseparable, until now. Say something, please, Vanessa whispered, wiping her eyes. I'm processing, I replied, which was true. What Vanessa didn't know was that I'd suspected something for weeks, small things that didn't quite add up. Julian's phone always face down on the table. Vanessa canceling plans last minute, then Julian being unavailable those same evenings. The way they'd both gotten quiet when I walked into rooms. 2 weeks ago, I'd found a receipt in Julian's car. Prenatal vitamins purchased at a pharmacy across town. Julian had no reason to buy those. I wasn't pregnant. We'd stopped trying a year ago after my 3rd miscarriage. That receipt had sent me down a path of quiet investigation. I'd checked our credit card statements, finding charges at hotels I'd never visited. I'd recovered deleted texts from Julian's laptop backup. I'd hired a private investigator who'd confirmed my worst fears with photographs. But I hadn't confronted them. Instead, I'd prepared. Does Julian know you're telling me? I asked. Vanessa shook her head. He wanted to wait. But I couldn't lie to you anymore. I appreciate your honesty, I said, standing up from the table. I need some time to think. Vanessa grabbed my arm. Laurel, please, I never meant for this to happen. We tried to stop, but we fell in love. Love, the word felt like a joke. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't destroy friendships. Love doesn't sneak around for 3 months while pretending everything is normal. I understand, I replied calmly. These things happen. Her confusion was visible. You're not angry. I'm angry, I admitted. But anger doesn't solve problems. Planning does. I left the coffee shop with my head high, ignoring Vanessa's confused stare. My phone buzzed with a text from Julian asking what I wanted for dinner. I replied with a simple surprise me and a heart emoji. Let him think everything was normal. Let them both think I was falling apart. Meanwhile, I had phone calls to make. The lawyer I'd consulted last week was expecting my call. I drove to my office instead of going home. My colleague Diana was still there, working late as usual. She looked up when I entered, immediately reading my expression. It happened, she asked. Diana was the only person who knew about my suspicions. I'd confided in her 2 weeks ago when the evidence became overwhelming. She'd helped me stay focused on planning rather than reacting. Vanessa told me today, I confirmed. Julian doesn't know she did. Diana whistled low. That's going to make things interesting. I pulled out the folder I'd been compiling. Bank statements, property documents, business records, and photographs from the investigator, everything organized with color-coded tabs. I'm filing tomorrow, I said. The papers are ready. Signed and dated, my attorney just needs my go-ahead. Diana studied me carefully. Are you sure you're okay? This is a lot to process. I was okay, surprisingly okay. Maybe because I'd already grieved the relationship during those 2 weeks of investigation. That evening, I returned home to find Julian cooking pasta. He'd set the table with candles, playing soft music in the background, a romantic dinner for the wife he was betraying. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing my cheek. His touch made my skin crawl, but I maintained my composure. "Productive," I replied truthfully. "Vanessa and I had coffee." I watched his face carefully, a slight tensing around his eyes, but his smile never faltered. "How is she?" "Pregnant," I said casually, reaching for a glass of wine. Julian dropped the spoon he was holding. It clattered against the stove, sauce splattering. "What?" "She's pregnant, didn't say who the father was though, seemed nervous about it." I sipped my wine, watching him scramble for composure. "That's unexpected," he managed. "Did she seem happy?" "Hard to say, she seemed guilty about something." The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. Julian's hands shook slightly as he ate. That night, Julian's phone buzzed constantly. He excused himself to the bathroom 3 times, each time returning more agitated. I pretended not to notice, scrolling through my own phone while mentally reviewing my plans. At midnight, after Julian finally fell asleep, I carefully removed his phone from the nightstand. His passcode was our anniversary. He'd never changed it. The messages from Vanessa were panicked. "She knows something. She wasn't angry enough. What if she's planning something?" Julian's responses tried to calm her. "She doesn't know, she would have said something. Let me handle this. Everything will work out." I took screenshots of everything, backing them up to my secure cloud storage. Evidence upon evidence. Then I placed his phone back exactly where he'd left it. Tomorrow would be interesting. Tomorrow, Julian would receive divorce papers at his studio. Tomorrow, Vanessa would discover I'd removed her from my business insurance policy. Morning came with false normalcy. Julian made coffee, kissed my forehead, and headed to his studio. He had a client meeting at 10 according to his calendar. Perfect timing. I called my attorney at 9. "File everything," I said simply. By 9:30, a process server was on the way to Julian's studio. By 10, Vanessa would receive her own surprise. A registered letter informing her that her position as my emergency contact and insurance beneficiary had been revoked. Small moves, but meaningful ones. I went to work, counseling clients through their crises while managing my own. At 11:15, my phone exploded with calls. Julian, Vanessa, Julian again. I let them all go to voicemail. Diana poked her head into my office. "The Eagle has landed. Both packages delivered," I confirmed. She grinned. "You're terrifyingly calm about this." "I learned from the best," I replied. Our clients taught me that emotion without strategy leads nowhere. Strategy with controlled emotion changes everything. Voicemails were predictable. Julian's first message was confused. "Laurel, I just got served divorce papers. This is insane. Call me immediately." His second message, an hour later, was angry. "You can't just blindside me like this. We need to talk." His third message was desperate. "Please, let's discuss this like adults." Vanessa's messages followed a similar pattern. Confusion, anger, then panic about the insurance removal. Neither of them mentioned the pregnancy in their messages. Interesting. They were still trying to hide it. At lunch, I finally returned Julian's call. He answered on the first ring. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. "I'm divorcing you," I said simply. "Why didn't you talk to me first? Why didn't you tell me you were having a baby with my best friend?" Silence, long, heavy silence. "She told you," he finally whispered. "She did, yesterday, very considerate of her, actually." "Laurel, please, let me explain." "No need, everything's clear." Julian rushed home within the hour. I was waiting in the living room, the folder of evidence spread across the coffee table. His face went white when he saw the photographs. "You've been investigating me?" "I've been protecting myself," I corrected. "There's a difference." He sat down heavily, staring at the pictures of him and Vanessa entering hotels, receipts from romantic dinners, text messages about their future together. "How long have you known?" he asked quietly. 2 weeks. "Since I found the prenatal vitamin receipt." "And you said nothing." "I was gathering information, making sure I understood the complete picture before acting." Julian's hands trembled as he picked up one of the bank statements. It showed the separate account I'd opened 6 months ago, quietly transferring money from our joint account. "You've been moving money," he accused. "My money," I clarified. "From my salary, which I can prove with deposit records." "This is vindictive," Julian said, his voice rising. "This is practical," I countered. "You were planning to leave anyway, I'm just controlling the timeline." He stood up, packing. "We can work this out, go to counseling, try to save." "Save what? A marriage where you're having a baby with my best friend." The words finally hung between us, fully acknowledged. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said weakly. "It just developed." Over 3 months. Longer, he admitted. The pregnancy happened 3 months ago. We've been seeing each other for almost a year. A year. While I'd been funding his studio, while I'd worked overtime to cover our expenses, while I'd believed we were partners. Get out, I said calmly. This is my house too. Actually, no, this house was my inheritance from my grandmother. Your name isn't on the deed. Check the documents. He grabbed the property papers from the table, scanning frantically. His face fell. You kept the house in your name, he said, stunned. My grandmother's lawyer insisted, said it was smart to protect family property. I'd been grateful for that advice then. I was even more grateful now. Where am I supposed to go? Julian asked. I don't care. Vanessa's apartment, a hotel, that's not my problem anymore. You can't just kick me out. I can, actually. This is my property. You're now served with divorce papers. The law gives me the right to ask you to leave. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Who are you? This isn't the Laurel I married. The Laurel you married trusted you. That Laurel is gone. I stood, picking up my car keys. I'm leaving for an hour. When I return, I expect you to have packed your essentials and left. Anything remaining will be moved to storage at your expense. I walked out, leaving him standing amid the evidence of his betrayal. I drove to Diana's house. She opened the door with a knowing look. How'd it go? He's packing now. We sat in her kitchen, drinking tea while I processed what had just happened. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from both Julian and Vanessa. I ignored them all. You're handling this remarkably well, Diana observed. I'm a crisis counselor. I literally do this for a living. Not for yourself, usually. She was right. Managing other people's crises was easier than managing your own. But my professional training had given me tools, emotional regulation, strategic thinking, the ability to separate feelings from actions. Vanessa called me, Diana said carefully. She wants to explain. There's nothing to explain. She betrayed me. He betrayed me. The facts are clear. She's claiming it was true love, that they couldn't help themselves. I laughed bitterly. True love would have been honest from the start. This was just selfishness. Diana nodded. What's your next move? My next move came the following morning. I'd spent the night at Diana's house, letting Julian have time to clear out. When I returned home, half his belongings were gone. He'd left a note on the kitchen table. Please reconsider. We can fix this. I crumpled it and threw it away. Then I made a phone call to Julian's largest client, a wedding photography company that provided 60% of his studio's income. I'd helped him land that contract 2 years ago through my professional connections. I need to inform you of some personal changes, I told the owner, keeping my voice professional. Julian and I are divorcing. I wanted you to know in case it affects any contracts. The owner was sympathetic. I'm sorry to hear that. Your recommendation meant a lot when we hired him. I appreciate you taking a chance on him. However, I should mention that my recommendation was based on our personal relationship, which no longer exists. The implication hung in the air. By afternoon, Julian's biggest client had pulled their contract. They'd cited changing business needs, but we both knew the truth. Julian called me, furious. You destroyed my business. I informed a client about our divorce. How they chose to respond isn't my responsibility. You did this on purpose. I did what was necessary to protect my professional reputation. That client relationship existed because of my connections. This is revenge. This is consequences. There's a difference. I hung up before he could respond. Vanessa tried calling next. I finally answered. You're destroying his life, she said, her voice shaking. He destroyed our marriage. I'm simply protecting my interests. What about the baby, your godchild? The word godchild hit hard. She wanted me to be the godmother to the child she'd conceived with my husband. That child isn't my responsibility. You two created this situation. Now deal with it. Laurel, please. We need Julian's income. The baby should have been considered before the affair. 2 weeks passed. Julian moved in with Vanessa, their relationship now public. Social media exploded with speculation. Our mutual friends divided into camps. Some supported me. Others claimed I was being vindictive and should forgive. I blocked anyone who suggested I was overreacting. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Julian tried to claim half the house value, but the deed was clear. He tried to claim spousal support, but I had documentation of his affair. He tried to claim half my retirement accounts, but my lawyer had already protected those. Everything I'd prepared for 2 weeks paid off. Meanwhile, Julian's studio struggled. He'd lost his main client and couldn't afford the rent. Vanessa's teacher's salary couldn't support 2 adults and a coming baby. They were learning that affairs don't translate well into practical life. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered cautiously. "Is this Laurel Brennan?" a professional voice asked. "Yes." "I'm calling from Sterling Photography Group. We're expanding and looking for a business consultant with your background." The job offer was unexpected. Sterling Photography was Julian's main competitor, the company he'd always envied. They wanted me to consult on business development. "Why me?" I asked. "You helped launch Julian Hayes Photography, correct? The business model was innovative." "I provided financial planning and networking support, yes." "We're impressed. Your work in crisis intervention also gives you unique insight into client relations." The salary they offered was substantial. More than my current counseling position. "I'll need to think about it," I said. "Of course, we'll send details via email." After hanging up, I sat in silence. This opportunity felt like justice served cold. Working for Julian's competitor would destroy what remained of his struggling business. But was that too vindictive? Diana, when I told her, was enthusiastic. "Take it, you deserve this opportunity." "It feels like revenge. It feels like career advancement. There's a difference." She was right. I'd spent years supporting Julian's dreams while putting mine on hold. This was my chance. I accepted the position. Sterling Photography announced my hearing on social media, praising my expertise in business development and client relations. Julian's response came within minutes. Angry texts filled my phone. "You're killing me on purpose. This is beyond revenge. How can you be so cruel?" I responded once. "I'm advancing my career. Your feelings about it aren't my concern." Vanessa tried a different approach. She showed up at my office, her pregnancy now visible under her coat. "Please," she begged. "Julian's business is failing. We can't afford to lose everything. You should have considered that before sleeping with my husband." "I know we were wrong, but punishing us forever isn't the answer." I looked at my former best friend, the person who'd known all my secrets, my fears, my dreams. "I'm not punishing you, I'm living my life. The fact that it affects you is incidental." "You've changed," she whispered. "I've evolved. There's a difference." She left crying. I felt nothing but relief. Sterling Photography thrived under my consultation. I implemented new client relationship strategies, expanded their market reach, and improved their booking system. Within 3 months, they doubled their revenue. Julian's studio, meanwhile, continued declining. He'd lost 2 more major clients to Sterling. His social media presence, once vibrant, became sporadic and desperate. Vanessa gave birth to a daughter. They named her Claire. I saw the announcement on social media through a friend's share. The baby was beautiful. I felt nothing. That might have been my godchild in another life. In this life, she was evidence of betrayal. Julian tried one more time to reach out, a letter delivered to my house. "I know you hate me, I deserve it, but Vanessa and I are struggling. The baby needs things, could we please talk?" I didn't respond. Instead, I donated a substantial amount to a children's charity. Helping children was important. Helping Julian was not. My therapist, whom I'd started seeing monthly, asked about my feelings. "You feel guilty about their situation?" my therapist asked. "No," I answered honestly. "Should I?" "There's no should in feelings. I'm asking what you actually feel." I considered it. "I feel relieved, free, like I finally stopped carrying weight that wasn't mine." "And the baby?" "The baby is innocent, but she's not my responsibility. They made choices. This is the consequence." My therapist nodded. "You've processed this remarkably well." I had 2 weeks to prepare before confronting them. That helped. Most people don't use that time so strategically. Most people aren't crisis counselors. We're trained to think clearly under pressure. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I received an unexpected message from Julian's mother. She'd supported me quietly throughout everything, disgusted by her son's behavior. "I thought you should know," she wrote. "Julian and Vanessa are getting married next month. Small ceremony, just family." I felt nothing. No jealousy, no anger, just nothing. "Thank you for telling me," I replied. "I hope they're happy." A year after the betrayal, I was thriving. My position at Sterling Photography had expanded. I was now their director of business development, earning triple my old salary. I'd moved into a beautiful downtown apartment, decorated exactly how I wanted without compromising for anyone. I'd started dating casually, nothing serious, just rediscovering who I was outside of marriage. Deanna and I took a vacation to Italy, something I'd always wanted to do but Julian had never prioritized. Through mutual friends, I heard updates about Julian and Vanessa. They'd married quietly. His studio had closed completely. He was now working as a freelance photographer, struggling for clients. Vanessa had returned to teaching after maternity leave, shouldering most bills. Their dream life had become a financial nightmare. The affair that seemed so exciting in secret was mundane in reality. Diapers, bills, and regret. I ran into them once. Accidentally, at a grocery store. Vanessa looked exhausted, pushing a cart with baby supplies. Julian looked older, worn down. They saw me at the same moment I saw them. For a second, we all froze. Then Vanessa turned her cart around, hurrying down another aisle. Julian stood there, staring. "You look good," he said finally. "I am good," I replied. "How's Claire?" "Growing fast, he trailed off. "She's wonderful." "I'm glad." Silence stretched between us. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For everything, I destroyed the best thing in my life." "You did," I agreed, "but I rebuilt something better." "Are you happy?" "Very." I started to walk away, then paused. "I hope you figure things out, Julian, for Claire's sake." It was the last time I spoke to him. 2 years after the betrayal, Sterling Photography offered me a partnership. Part ownership in a company that now dominated the local market. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who'd once supported her husband's photography dreams now owned his competitor. At the partnership celebration, my boss made a toast. To Laurel, who turned crisis into opportunity. I thought about those words often. Crisis into opportunity. That's exactly what I'd done. Julian and Vanessa's betrayal could have destroyed me. I could have collapsed into anger and bitterness. Instead, I'd used my professional training to navigate strategically. I'd protected my assets. I'd advanced my career. I'd chosen growth over grief. Friends occasionally asked if I'd forgiven them. "Forgiveness isn't required for healing," I'd reply. "I've moved on. That's enough." 3 years after the coffee shop confession, I received a LinkedIn message from Vanessa. "I know you probably won't read this, but I need to apologize properly. What we did was unforgivable. You deserved so much better. Watching how you handled everything taught me what strength really looks like. I'm sorry we weren't worthy of your friendship." I read it twice, then closed the message without responding. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. That evening, I signed papers for Sterling Photography's expansion into 3 new cities. My business plan, my vision, my success. 4 years later, I was engaged. His name was Warren, an architect I'd met through work. He was kind, honest, and absolutely transparent about everything. We dated for 2 years before he proposed, taking time to build trust properly. When I told him about Julian and Vanessa, he'd listened carefully. "You handled that remarkably well," he'd said. "I survived it," I'd corrected. "There's a difference." "No," he'd replied. "You didn't just survive, you transformed it." That takes remarkable strength. Planning our wedding, I thought about the difference between this relationship and my marriage to Julian. Warren supported my career without resentment. He celebrated my successes genuinely. He communicated openly about everything. This was what partnership actually meant. Through the industry grapevine, I heard Julian and Vanessa had divorced. Apparently, the guilt and financial stress had destroyed their relationship. They'd split custody of Claire. Both were struggling separately now. I felt sorry for Claire, growing up amid that chaos, but not sorry enough to get involved. 5 years after Vanessa's confession in that coffee shop, I stood in my corner office at Sterling Photography's headquarters. The company had expanded nationwide under my leadership. My career had flourished beyond anything I'd imagined. Warren and I had just returned from our honeymoon. Life was genuinely good. My phone buzzed with a message from Diana. "Saw Julian at the mall today. He asked about you." I smiled, typing back. "And told him you're living your best life." He looked sad. "That's not my problem anymore," I replied, and I meant it. Julian and Vanessa's betrayal had been devastating in the moment, but it had also freed me from a mediocre marriage and a toxic friendship. It had pushed me toward a career I loved and a partner who truly valued me. Sometimes betrayal is just life clearing space for something better. I'd gotten the last laugh not through revenge, but through success. Not through making them suffer, but through building a life so fulfilling their betrayal became irrelevant. That's the real victory.